even if it turns out that the court decides that he is not the Ivan the Terrible, or even another Ivan the Terrible, he's definitely another terrible Ivan. So, in any event, he's not going anywhere. I mean, you can forget about the ticker tape parade in Cleveland.
The decision on what to do with him will be made by the Supreme Court, which spent several weeks hearing new evidence. That ended in June, their verdicts due shortly. The appeal court judges may well decide that John Demjanjuk is not Ivan the Terrible. That will be a desperately painful verdict for many people in Israel to accept, because this has been so much more than a trial of one man's guilt. This has been a hearing of history.
So you think that Ilya Ehrenburg is a special case? Let me give you the case of another Jew, Salomon Morel. 60 Minutes to the show on him. Now, John Sack is a Jew from New York. He wrote this book about this Jewish murderer in Poland that was in charge of a concentration camp after the war. Reporting in here how he would beat with table legs these Germans that were under his care to death because he says they killed my parents in Auschwitz. First of all, the jury is still out if they really did kill him. How the hell did he know him? Did he know that? The fact is that here was a Jew who had power over Germans. The war wasn't even over when he began his work, and he committed these crimes. That in Poland, in this little town where he did his evil deeds, there are over 540 death certificates that he issued himself for people that died in his camp and he was there. Now, the West Germans know that he lives in Tel Aviv. 60 Minutes found him in his apartment in Tel Aviv. Here is the documentation by another Jew. Is there any extradition going on? Do those hypocrites from the B'nai B'rith that you just saw about war crimes talk about that case? Of course not. You see, this is the problem. That's why I say that the hypocrisy is the hallmark of the modern Jew, that he talks out of both corners of his mouth, that he wants to persecute Nazi war criminals to the end of time, but will not extradite or go after Jewish war criminals.
And my wife constantly reminds me to tone down. I brought that guy back from Israel, John Demjanjuk. It was my Freedom of Information Act which proved not only that he was innocent, but who Ivan really was. The case was so sensitive, members of Congress would say, Jim, I love you, but please, don't involve me. I sent my evidence to the Sixth Circuit Court in Cincinnati. They wouldn't accept it. I finally sent it over to Israel, to the Israeli Supreme Court, and they called me over there, and I went with the family. I did a live interview, satellite, with Brian Gumbel, and I said, when they put this innocent man to death, they're going to lose $15 to $20 billion every year they get from the American taxpayers. And Brian Gumbel says, what are you talking about? You only get $3 billion. And I said, Brian, that's only the foreign aid bill. Look at all the other trade compacts, economic assistance, military assistance. I'm saying this to you right now. Israel gets approximately $15 billion a year from the American taxpayers. That $15 billion is $30,000 for every man, woman, and child. And people in my district are losing their pension benefits. So I was targeted big time.
By the Israelis?
The Israeli Supreme Court looked at the evidence, could not refute it. And it came from the Justice Department, Greta. And they said, take him home.
You can forget about the ticker tape parade in Cleveland.
I brought him home and he was bombarded ever since.
Home to Ohio.
Now he's in Germany fighting for his life. Now let me say this. Prosecutor Moskowitz of the OSI Office of the United States Justice Department suborned perjury with Otto Horn. The documents clearly state who Ivan the Terrible was, a man named Ivan Marchenko, not Demjanjuk. And they had to release him. And now they can't live with it. They couldn't live with Jim Traficant, having beaten him in 1983. I was a walking symbol of defiance. And now they have this man in Germany. And if someone doesn't look into this, the American people should be ashamed of themselves. When you allow one American to be violated, you threaten the freedoms of every American. And I can't understand this, why no one in Congress is raising their voice. And the reason is very simple. And this may be you don't want to hear, I don't know. And I certainly don't want to hurt you on your show. You have one of the best. You're fair. But I believe that Israel has a powerful stranglehold on the American government. They control both members of the House and the Senate. They have us involved in wars of which we have little or no interest. Our children are coming back in body bags. Our nation is bankrupt over these wars. And if you open your mouth, you get targeted. And if they don't beat you at the poll, they'll put you in prison.
I got to be careful. It's like a lot of friends say, they've already destroyed you, they've taken away your name. Be careful you don't get too much in the public eye again, because they'll kill you.
Many of Jim Traficant's friends and former colleagues from around the valley contacted our newsroom when they heard the news of his death. They offer their condolences, thoughts, and prayers for Jim's family during this difficult time.
You know, I was a #1 target of the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee and the #1 target of the Justice Department since 1983, being the only American to ever defeat him pro se in the RICO trial. And I have big enemies, but I have some grudges, and I want to go at them. I want to go at them big time.
In the spring of 2009, American immigration officers entered the home of John Demjanjuk, a retired auto worker from Cleveland.
His jacket?
Yes, I have his jacket right here that I'm going to put on now.
That I know.
Until now, he's been the world's most wanted Nazi war criminal.
Let me give you the case of another Jew, Salomon Morel.